hopefully the town clerk will come in at some point and take over. But I'll go, and as I say your name, just say here. Representative Adams?
Here.
Bailey?
Here.
Baker?
Here.
Casper?
Here.
Cassieri?
Here.
Chase?
Here.
Cologne? Okay. Lynn Crockett Hubbard? Dean Shinbrot?
Here.
DeCilia Fleming?
Here.
Fitzgerald?
Here.
Flax?
Here.
Fortner?
Here.
Foster?
Here.
Brickman?
Here.
Gauthier? David?
He just went to the bathroom. He'll be right back.
Okay,
Gauthier Lawrence here.
thank you. Can people mute when they're not on? Gustafson?
Come from wireless tower. Come from
Gustafson? Hanscom? Jones?
Here.
Kanicki? Katowski? Katowski's here. Do you want to respond? Yeah, I just unmuted you.
Oh,
And Betsy is back.
Here.
Okay. Oh, let me just finish on this. Lambert?
Here.
Luck?
Here.
Mello Miller?
Here.
Mello Miller.
She said here.
Okay. Didn't hear it. Merritt?
Here.
Osman?
Here.
Perry? Powers Kristen?
Here.
Powers Sean?
Here.
Richards?
Here.
Rusk?
Here.
Starkley?
Here.
Stevenson?
Here.
Thomas?
Here.
Washington?
Here.
Wells?
Here.
Whitehouse?
Here.
Whitney?
Here.
Was
Eb-
Perry? Sorry.
Ebbin is here.
What was the reply in Perry?
I did not hear Perry or Kanicki, Cologne, Crockett Hubbard, or Hanscom, or Gustafson.
Got it.
So, welcome, Town Clerk. I hear you're on. Is that correct? Well, we'll move forward. The first item on our agenda is a moment of silence. I just wanted to preface this by saying at this point, 7.5 million people, I believe, are infected with the coronavirus worldwide. And there have been over 400,000 deaths. So I would like to, take this moment to think about them and to think about the caregivers who are risking their lives to take care of them, and to think about the racial strife and trying to heal those wounds. So thank you. And when we come back, I would like to ask Representative Jones to lead the pledge, but let's have this moment first. Thank you. Representative Jones, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You guys are getting better at that. Thank you. The first item on our agenda beyond that is the approval of minutes for our April 11th annual budget meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those?
Representative Rusk, so moved.
Thank you. Representative Rusk moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Second from Representative Bailey. Is there any discussion on those minutes? No. All right, seeing none, all in favor of approving the annual budget meeting of the RTM of April 11th, 2020, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, those minutes are approved unanimously. We also have the minutes from our regular May meeting, May 13th, to approve. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to approve from Representative Baker, I believe, and it was seconded by Representative Bailey to approve the minutes of our May 13th meeting. Is there any discussion on that? Representative Adams. Representative Adams, your hand is up.
Yes. I just spoke with Representative Hubbard, and she's having computer problems, which is why she's not attending the meeting.
Okay. Well, she can keep trying. And if she succeeds, she can be or she can just watch it also. I don't, either way. So we'll hopefully see her soon. Thank you. And is there any discussion pertinent to the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes of the regular meeting of the RTM of May 13th, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, I believe those minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you. All right, we have citizens petitions, and this is the portion of the RTM agenda when the RTM welcomes comments from citizens. Each presentation should be limited to 10 minutes or less, and citizens should, if possible, submit written comments. Presentations should be limited to matters pertinent to Groton, and the moderator, or I, shall ask or members through the moderator shall ask questions only in order to clarify the speaker's presentation. Responses may be given by the moderator and or the town manager. Citizens should state their name and address for the record. So I believe we have a Ms. Christine Oliver who may be wishing to speak, and she's in attendees.
Hi there, can I be heard?
Yes, thank you. If you could just state your name and address for the record.
Perfect. My name is Christine Olivier, 75 Hemlock Road, Groton. Thank you guys for letting me be here tonight. I'd like to first acknowledge that I understand that not all members of the town of Groton government identify with, support, or condone the behavior of elected official Roseanne Katowski. But I'm here tonight to make sure that those who didn't condone her behavior in private condemn it in public. I am appalled by Representative Katowski's remarks, but what overpowers me is the pride that I feel for the students who proved her wrong. When I see angry youth taking action, I feel pride. When Representative Katowski saw angry youth taking action, she felt threatened. When she sent that email, she wasn't worried about a person dressed in black with a backpack of bricks. She was worried about a black kid with a backpack of books, written by people who don't look like her, think like her, and certainly don't act like her. A digital press release will not erase the existence of this email. Let me tell you something. I'm a millennial. We invented using social media for social change. And you know what? The generation behind us and behind them are 10 times more skilled at using social media to overhaul unjust systems. And they are only getting stronger, and they are only getting smarter. Those are the students who lawfully practice their right to protest. She claimed she didn't want the movement to come to Groton. The movement is Groton. 1,000 people turned out to lawfully march behind those youth on Sunday, despite her opposition. And those youth organized that in less than a week. Can you imagine what they'll be capable of in 2 weeks or 2 years? Representative Katowski presented a rationale based on her view of the riots and looting of other protests in other communities, and in doing so applied blind judgment against members of her own constituency. Representative Katowski works for all citizens, including those students who lawfully filed for the right to air their grievance on the steps of City Hall. As for her claim to fight for fiscal responsibility, she already voted on the budget. It isn't hers anymore. It belongs to the people. So why did she think she had the right to tell the citizens that she works for that there wouldn't be enough money for them to throw away their garbage or relieve themselves? And as an informed citizen, I'd like it posted for the record that cleaning restrooms and removing garbage are not itemized costs and are institutionally offered regardless of a protest. Don't hide behind finance. Free speech is a right. Fiscal responsibility is a practice. I've been doing a lot of research to understand my own role in racist structures, and while I have a long way to go, one of the main things I'm coming to see clearly is racism is not an individual's actions towards another. It's when a system allows white people within its ranks to continually use their power to put their needs and interests above others. Katowski did not infer that the Black Lives Matter movement was not welcome to Groton, as the press release issued by the town claimed. She went a step beyond inference and requested that it doesn't come to Groton. Thinking that a press release covers up her transgression is a clear example of systemic racism, because if she hadn't been overruled or put on blast by a member of the town council, her racist questions and remarks would have turned into racist actions, and then those actions would have turned into crimes, and then the cycle starts all over again. To the fellow members of the RTM and any member of town government listening tonight, do not let your privilege make you feel like a press release is enough. We have been told by our neighbors that they expect us to get uncomfortable, and it starts now. As a 32-year-old white woman with my own inherent privilege and power that I need to assess, it's my turn to use my voice for good against people who try to use theirs for evil. I will do everything in my power to make sure that the voices coming up behind me are 10 times louder than I am, and that those like Katowski's become 10 times quieter. You tried to keep the movement out of your town, Roseanne, by grossly overstepping the powers afforded to you within the RTM, but in doing so, all you did was brought the fight to your front door.
Thank you. I believe Representative Whitehouse, did you want to speak in citizens' petitions?
I did. And that is a tough act to follow. Michael Whitehouse, 600 Meridian Street Extension. And I have some comments I've prepared. And I also want to thank Christine for speaking, because she had some very good points. I wanted to speak kind of more generally on the issue we're facing as a town and as a society. So all of us are born knowing nothing. Everything that we know, we learned at some time in our lives. Some of us are lucky enough to learn important things early, and others are not. Some people have lived lives that have not exposed them to certain experiences. They may not understand the plight of people different from themselves. In the current moment, we will see people say things that seem offensive, but in many cases, the source of those words is simple ignorance. The problem with ignorance is you don't know what you don't know. Now, when things are said maliciously, then they should definitely be dealt with by malice. But when they are said in ignorance, it's an opportunity for teaching. People who tragically have gone their entire lives failing to really come to understand the situations of people different than themselves. People who have been the victims of a narrow worldview propagated by certain media sources. These people can finally have a moment of learning, which can bring them from ignorance to understanding. In the next few weeks, we're going to encounter many people acting in unrealized ignorance. Some things they say will make us very angry, and rightfully so. However, anger leads to more anger, but changing minds leads to change. I encourage everyone to try, instead of seeing it as a moment for retribution, to see these as moments for education and growth in our whole community. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. Are there any others who wish to speak under citizens' petitions? I believe Lisa Hilton only informed me about Ms. Olivier. Any other? Okay. All right. Seeing no more there, we're going to move on to the reception of communications. And I wanted to note that I did receive a communication from Representative Hanscom, who was ill and not able to join us tonight. I see that Representative Fitzgerald is able to join us, so I'm glad that you're here. I also wanted to note that I did receive 4 emails from Ms. Linda Bryant from the town of Groton. 2 of these dealt with urging the non-disclosure of elected officials. The most recent one that I received was actually, I will read at least part of it. I have been made aware of different ones calling for the resignation of one of our RTM members for her comments on Facebook and the New London Day. I am hoping that this storm will pass over and that no one else will jump on this bandwagon to force Roseanne Katowski to resign from her elected position on the RTM. For all the years Roseanne has represented our town, she has been a very good voice of reason for helping the people of this town to make a stand for fiscal responsibility. There is a movement in our country to throw at anyone who may not agree with the Black Lives Matter protests, which I have found out is really a front for a Marxist regime change in our country. They have brainwashed our young people to think that it is about racism. I hope the RTM will not cave into a mob mentality and allow for the freedoms of speech that we all hold so dear. We may not all agree with each other all the time, but we need to be civil and allow each other to voice our differences with respect. And so I received that. I believe that Representative Richards had also received a letter she wished to read. Representative Richards?
Yes, thank you. I received a message from former RTM Representative Annie Rogers, and I will read her letter for you. Dear Representative Richards and members of the RTM, as a Groton resident and former member of this body, I am writing today regarding the tone-deaf, ignorant, and insulting assumptions and questions shared publicly by Representative Katowski about last week's peaceful Black Lives Matter demonstration, the one organized by local youth as an appropriate, engaging, encouraging, and lawful exercise of their First Amendment rights. The subsequent apology issued by Representative Katowski was sorely needed, but it should be only the first of many steps taken on the long road to understanding and ultimately to justice. I hope that Representative Katowski recognizes this moment for what it is, a unique opportunity to stop talking and start listening to all the people of Groton, not just her conservative constituents. To recognize that tax dollars are not more important than human life. To see how short-term economic motivations lead to long-term inequities for the most needy in our community. To recognize that whiteness brings with it significant privilege, and that change is not a burden to be shouldered only by the oppressed. To appreciate that the demonstrations sweeping America are not fake news or some Antifa tactic. They are the manifestation of 401 years of injustice and brutality finally coming to a head, and that we better damn well take them seriously. The problems with Representative Katowski's BLM protest questions are well documented. I don't need to rehash them here. What I would like to do is share with the RTM some of the questions that I wish she had asked instead. I implore all of you to ask them to yourselves and within this body in the days, weeks, and months ahead. 1, what can I do to make room for younger, more diverse voices in our town? 2, how can I help facilitate a productive, respectful dialogue between the citizens and police officers of Groton? 3, are we doing everything in our power to make sure that all Groton residents feel safe, protected, and respected here? 4, how can we better support the community organizations that serve as a vital link between residents and the services they need most? And 5, would the people of color in my district say I'm doing all I can to understand their concerns and priorities? 6, is the RTM doing everything in its power to welcome and encourage more diversity? To that last point, I would like to close by encouraging the RTM to consider this proposal, that the town of Groton should reimburse any member of the RTM or town council for childcare expenses incurred in order to carry out their duties, to encourage more single parents, military spouses, women, and people of color to participate in our town government. We must destroy the barriers that have kept them out for far too long. This seems like a good place to start. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Annie Rogers, 208 High Street, Mystic.
Thank you.
Annie's letter. Thank you. And I appreciate her questions that she's posed to us.
Thank you, Representative Richards, for reading that. Are there any other communications that members wish to share? I did just learn that actually Representative Perry is ill and so is asking to be excused tonight. So I'm passing that on, and we certainly hope Representative Perry gets better quickly. All right. Seeing no other communications, I do note we have Dr. Graner and the Board of Ed Chair Watson here, and I was going to, I had asked Mr. Burt if they might give their presentation before his, so they could scoot out earlier. If that's okay with this body, I would ask Dr. Graner and Ms. Watson, Chair Watson, to speak now. Thanks.
Moderator Ebbin, thank you very much for letting us go on first. I will let Dr. Graner go first, but it's sad to not see everyone's face. This is part of the COVID-19 that I can't stand, is that for the people who I love in Groton, I can't see. So, but with further ado, I send it over to Dr. Graner.
Well, good evening. Thank you. I received a few questions from moderator from Sima, and so I'm going to address them, and then perhaps we can do some questions. The first one had to do with funding, and I wanted to let the RTM know that from the CARES Act, Groton has been allocated. Actually, the state of Connecticut was awarded $111 million to help with COVID-related education expenses. And so Groton was allocated $682,000. It's actually 83% of our Title I funds. And the use of those funds is actually pretty flexible. We know in the fall that there's, well, we don't know the exact plan yet, but we do anticipate there will be additional expenses, and those funds are going to be able to be used for perhaps expanded bus transportation system that we may need to have. We may need additional tutors. Well, we actually know we're going to need additional tutors. So we're putting a plan together for reopening. Schools will open, at least they're scheduled to open on the 1st of September. So we're putting a plan together, and the money has not yet arrived. But in answer to the question of do we, I think Representative Mella Miller asked, would we anticipate additional needs, budgetary needs? And at this point, I don't think so. The board has allocated a good bit of our Department of Defense supplemental impact aid, and the state allowed us to use a good bit of our alliance grant that we got this year to purchase technology. That's really the huge expense that we're concerned with the reopening in September. The second question had to do with our response to the district's response to the racial issue. So I'll give you a couple of short-term and long-term. As you know, a number of high school students got together and organized the march on Sunday. And then those students, along with our diversity group, the More Than Words, they had what they called a virtual get-together this evening to essentially for students to talk about the issues and to look at the school and see if we can improve the whole issue of equity and making sure our system is providing what students need in an equitable way. But the bigger long-term thing is that we have appointed 7 committees that we're calling our roadmap to reopening. And the committees involve everything from finances to instruction to health to wellness, both mental health and physical health. And we decided to appoint a committee that's going to look at diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's going to take a look at the policies, procedures, practices that are used in the school to be sure that all students are being treated in an equitable manner and that any kind of practices, and I'm sure there certainly are some that are leading to disparities, we're going to take a look at that. And so there are students on that committee. It's being headed up by one of our assistant principals from the middle school, Jamal Davis. But there are teachers and parents and other administrators. So we're gonna take a good hard look at the district and put an action plan together to be sure that people are being treated fairly. The big news that we're all waiting for, I can assure you, is from the governor. I'm anticipating an executive order, perhaps no later than the end of this month, to tell us what the state's plan for the fall is going to be. I think there are probably three options: reopening fully because we think the health concerns have been diminished; reopening with continued distance learning, although we're working hard to improve our distance learning. We think either at the beginning or potentially sometime during the school year, we might have to go back to distance learning. But what I'm hearing more of is a hybrid, that some students would come in some days and stay home on other days to participate in distance learning. And that classrooms, at least the initial plan that I'm hearing, classrooms would have no more than 50% occupancy. So that's going to be a logistics challenge for us to basically double the number of classrooms we have. But I think the state is looking at it. Younger children need a different system than older children. The high school students actually have done extremely, relatively well. Relatively speaking, I should say. They've done well with distance learning, the older children. At the opposite end of the spectrum, the younger children, and I expect there are members of the R.T.M who have experienced this, it's very difficult to replicate anything like in-person education for young children. So we're working to improve at all levels and be prepared for coming back full, which is what we hope for, of course, having to go out fully on online learning, or the hybrid. And I'll stop there and answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Any questions? I see Representative Mello Miller. You're on mute. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Graner, as always, and thank you for that summary of what you're doing. I have two questions. First, in regard to the COVID and the plans ahead, I was curious if there was a potential for teacher layoffs, or if there was any plans, or if you were looking at possibly early retirement, offering early retirement for certain teachers to balance this.
No, we don't anticipate that because either we'll come back and teachers will have approximately 1-to-20 ratio. The hybrid model actually is going to call for additional staff, not necessarily certified teachers, but you can imagine if one third grade class comes in, we would have to split that class into 2 rooms. And the teacher would present information, lessons for a portion of the day, and a non-certified person would be like in a tutorial role for that part of the day, and then the teacher would flip-flop. So we're going to actually need additional, which sort of gets to that CARES Act money. We believe we're going to have to hire, if we go hybrid, we're going to have to hire a significant number of people.
Okay, and then my second question was in regards to the new committee for diversity and equity and inclusion. Are you ensuring that you are asking people of color and minorities and women to the table in order to help this committee and guide them moving forward?
Yeah.
Can I ask Mike? Can I ask?
Yeah, sure.
Can I answer that question? So actually, the Jamal Davis is the chair of the committee, and this committee actually was part of a conversation that happened with the road map, which had the other 6 committees, which came from the Connecticut Center for Change that we have been working with, but they have been absolutely helping us with the COVID. But that alongside of that, we had many teachers, many women and many men, teachers who were coming together who wanted to sort of take a look at what systemic change could happen within the school district. And quite frankly, I think that the group is going to be an incredible mix of both gender and racial mix.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Representative Thomas?
Yes, I just wanted to ask the superintendent and Ms. Watson, Chairman Watson, what is being done specifically for minority recruiting in the district?
Well, we have a program that we've been participating with. Actually, Jamal Davis has been the leader of the Learn area minority recruiting effort that we're doing. We advertise and we of course try to recruit in that way, and we've been very successful. Our recent hires have a good percentage of them have been people of color. But the other thing that we've done, the board has invested in, is when we see positive paraprofessionals that we'd like to encourage. We have been offering them a tuition reimbursement program, and so we kind of grow our own. So in addition to recruiting and advertising and having fairs, employment fairs, we have also encouraged people, selected people to get certified, and we've actually successfully hired them a few over the last year.
Thank you. Representative Whitney?
Yeah, I just have 2 questions. One of them is about West Side and Cutler. Those buildings are going to be vacant, and I understand there's construction sites, but it seems to me they have a lot of classroom space for spreading out classes. Has there been any thought to using them as elementary sites? And then my other question about the hybrid model is when the students aren't in the classrooms, is there going to be interactive distance learning? Because that interactive part was really missing this year.
Let me answer the first question. When I heard about this model last week, that thought occurred to me. To use West Side and Cutler. A couple of practical problems. One is the foundations of the schools are actually in the process of being laid down right now. There's major construction going on both in Cutler, at the Cutler site and West Side. There's and our construction manager, of course, is on site, and we will demolish both buildings starting really in late June. The problem with delaying it also comes with about a $2 million price tag. If you wait a year, you run into approximately a 2%, at least a 2% cost increase. And since the amount of money that we're going to get reimbursement for is already fixed, that $2 million would have to come out of the building. So while I agree with you, Mike, I thought it was a practical idea. When I spoke to the construction guys, they said that it was not feasible. The second thing is, yes, we are working hard. We want the distance learning to be interactive. We're looking at platforms. We're not sure that the platforms that we've used, like Zoom, work well at all grade levels. So we have a team, like Chairman Watson was saying, we have these committees. One of the committees is looking exactly at that, at instruction and technology, to be sure that we've got a learning management system. We've got the platforms, the live sharing platforms, and all the other interactive aspects of it. But yes, I think we've done fairly well, given the lack of preparation. But we've got our work cut out for the summer, and that is a major goal, what you just said, to make it more interactive.
Thank you. Representative Jones?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Superintendent, thank you for diving in on all this, and it really puts you up at things just sort of happen at a really super speed. So I have two questions. On the hybrid model, in our existing buildings, do we have the capacity for splitting classrooms? Do we need more rooms? How are we going to handle that, sort of moving all these people around? And the second question is, will this result in any longer hours in the day, more teacher time, or students being in the building longer, that kind of thing?
You are thinking thoughts very similar to what's going through everyone's mind right now. The idea is that some students would be, I think they're going to try to balance it from the governor's task force. Some students would be in school, and of course, other students would be out. So we would be able to utilize those classrooms. That's really the way we're going to attempt to do this. We're going to have to take we really need to know what the exact system is that the governor wants us to implement. But yes, the logistics of this will be a big challenge, but we will utilize, certainly we'll utilize all of our instructional spaces. And there may be some middle school students who for some days go to the high school, for example. I don't really know, but as soon as I find out, I'll make a report.
So Dr. Graner, is it clear that we don't have a lot of guidance about what the fall is going to look like? Is that correct?
Lack of clarity is completely clear.
Okay, so, all right. So I feel very committed that once we know what that's going to look like and what we have to do, I would want to make sure that we come back to both the RTM and the town council to let them know, one, not only for the financial obligation that might happen, because we don't know if this is going to be an unfunded mandate or not. But or how much support we're going to get from the state to do that, but also to make sure that our families in our district know what's going on. So the problem has been, is my understanding is that every day, every week, the plans have changed, and even for our summer school, it has changed. So my promise to the RTM and to the town council that once it becomes a little bit clearer than mud, we will come back to you, or at least send a memo to you to let you know what that's going to look like.
Thank you, Chair.
One follow-up question to that is, in talking to some businesses, they've commented that they're not able to bring their employees back until they know what is happening with their employees' students, because they need to be able to deal with daycare and taking care of these kids. So has that been factored into this equation at all, of how this is affecting the businesses?
Absolutely. And that is exactly the struggle that they're having in Hartford, to determine a plan that will support the economic comeback of the state. I think there are three things. There's the education, the health, and the economics here. And yes, very much so. That is a major concern that they're dealing with.
Right. And once again, as a board, we are really our hands are tied until we know what the direction that comes from the governor about how they're going to do that. But Representative Jones, my concern is also about how do you blend what the needs of the family are, what the needs are keeping our community safe, but also what are the needs of the worker. So once again, once the plan is there, because I would hate to speculate about what we have to do, what we have to not do, until we actually have the information at our fingertips.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Representative Cassieri.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Superintendent, I was just wondering if there was still going to be, no matter what the situation looked like in the fall, whether it would be a hybrid or a distance learning, would there still be a goal of getting kindergartners screened and preschoolers? Would there be some model of having them still screened?
Yes, we're putting that together now. We'll reach out to the parents.
And in fact, at our most recent Board of Ed Committee of the Whole, actually, the Assistant Superintendent kind of talked about the fact that there is a group of people together, kindergarten teachers and preschool teachers, about how to do screenings, about what can we do online, virtually, and also what needs to have happen in person. And there has been some requests about can the board kind of like allow for the first week of school to have sort of that screening being done. So once again, this is a very fluid process, but the district has been pretty responsive in trying to figure out all ends.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We have Representative Flax.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you, Dr. Graner and Kim, for coming tonight. I know your time is very valuable. Try to keep it short. I have two quick questions. One's just a yes or no question, and it's to put a rumor kind of to rest that we've been hearing in the community, and that is is there enough room at the new middle school to house all the students? And not talking like
yes,
not the fact that teachers going from class to class or not having their own classroom, but for all the students that are coming into the school.
Yes. There's plenty of room.
Okay. Thank you very much on that. The other question was just about, I appreciate hearing that we don't have a plan yet, and we understand that the governor is, waiting for him to hand something down. And one of the things that we saw as parents was that it would be helpful, I think, to parents and to paras to have consistency across grades for the work and how it's presented by the teachers and how the students receive it, so that parents and paras aren't looking at different presentations depending on the teacher or the grade. I'm wondering if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, and that is the work that we actually had a big workshop today about this. That is exactly what we're trying to do: get one platform, one set of criteria, and one set of expectations for the parents, so we can do that. I appreciate your concern and understand it, and we'll work to that goal.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank you. Representative Whitehouse.
So one question I have for when we're coming back, has any thought been given to the climate control, air control system, air purification, using UV light in the air ducts, things like that, so that we're not, and there's not too much you can do if the kids are all in the same room. But to make sure you're at least not transmitting viruses from room to room through the climate control system and other technological solutions to prevent infection through the schools.
I know that has been discussed, but I'm going to share that. One of the committees on the return to school roadmap actually is this getting the facilities ready to be sure that they're safe. And I think that's a good point. I've heard a good bit about ventilation, but I'll follow up on that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. So I would thank you both for joining us tonight. I know you guys are super busy, and I appreciate allowing the RTM to ask questions.
Madam Moderator, thank you very much for letting us come tonight. And also, I just wanted to say thank you very much for the RTM to continue to partner with the district, specifically in these very difficult times, and supporting our families and our students and our community. And as much as we can, we will keep you as updated on this very fluid situation about how to come back to school. So thank you very much to all, and I hope everyone a good night. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Stay well. And the next item is actually the previous item, is the town manager's report. Mr. Burt.
Good evening. the finance report first. Fund balance as of May 31st is approximately 23 million, which is 18% of the 2020 general fund adopted budget. Contingency budget was originally adopted at 350,000, and the current balance is 239,482. And then the capital reserve fund remains at about 1 million. In terms of just overall things, I did participate in the march on Sunday, a good event. Everything went well. Town Hall and Town Hall Annex both reopened on Monday. We have a lot of precautions in place for safety, and everything's been going really well so far. And people have been really good about spacing and wearing their masks and all that for visitors. The library, as you know, is doing curbside service right now. We're looking at potentially June 22nd to open up the next phase and have 50% capacity, but the intent is people in and out as quickly as possible and do as much curbside as we can. Now, this is sort of fluid, so things could change. We held a business outreach, number 2, to businesses concerning phase 2 of the state reopening on Monday. Went very well, and some good questions, and that is available online to view. Paige Bronk is working on obtaining additional community development block grant dollars to be able to use for things like potentially to buy a stockpile of protection that could be distributed to businesses, governments, that type of thing. We are in the process of applying. Public Works are going to co-host a community paper shredding event on Wednesday, June 17th from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. in the library parking lot, and that is free, so a good way to get rid of some of your sensitive papers. That's what I have, and I also brought along, we were requested to have Jerry Lokken come along and give a Parks and Rec update, and I believe I saw him on the panelist list.
Yes, I'm here, John. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I just got to text Bruce Flax, who has a question.
Okay. Representative Flax?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I actually had a question for Jerry. If he's going to speak, I can ask afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
I would just say I had a few questions for Mr. Burt. I just had invited the police chief Fasaro to come to our meeting tonight. Maybe we can address this after Jerry speaks, but I did want to inquire as to the status in our town. We are blessed or not blessed, as you look at it, with 3 different police departments in Groton, Long Point, the city, and the town. And I really wanted to know about the types of, racial equity training and implicit bias training that they've received, de-escalation techniques.
And Chief Fasaro is putting all that together. He's doing a presentation to the town council on the 23rd, so in 2 weeks from yesterday.
Okay, and I will definitely be there, and I urge everyone else to listen in. I do think this is really important information, so thank you, Mr. Burt. Mr. Lokken?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So Groton Parks and Rec, just like the rest of the town, is paying strict attention to the governor's executive orders and the sector guidance from the Reopen Connecticut Task Force. And then there's a whole bunch of things that are kind of not well defined or not specifically noted. And for those things, we're working with the Ledgelight Health District to answer any kind of really specific questions or really detailed things that are not covered under the state guidance. So in a nutshell, there are things that Parks and Recreation is currently doing that's open, and I'll go through those things. And there are some things that are closed, and then there are some things that are kind of in between or close to being reopened. So with that, all parks, trails, open spaces, they're all open, and they're subject to the executive order from the governor that says that social and recreational gatherings are limited to 10 people indoors and 25 people outdoors. So that really means that parks and those types of things are open and available to the public. But there are some specific things within parks that, like playgrounds or basketball courts, that are currently closed due to the difficulty in maintaining physical distance. I would say also the Groton Senior Center and the Groton Community Center are closed, although we're doing some programs virtually. So despite the fact that we're operating those two facilities, indoor spaces, we just don't, we cannot right now conform to the order of 10 people indoors. That doesn't work at the senior center, and it doesn't work at the community center. It does work, however, at Shinnecock Golf Course. And just sharing some good news, Shinnecock had one of the best springs in many, many years. Just due to the weather, and even with the COVID situation, we had a number of golfers, up to 50% of the people golfing at Shinnecock for the months of March, April, and May were coming from Massachusetts. So that's an essential economic driver for the town. As you know, as we're in the grips of the COVID situation, the golf course is one kind of shining star that actually did very well. But there are changes at the golf course. The pro shop is closed. They have touchless ball retrieval systems. When you hit the ball into the cup, they removed things like ball washers and things like that on the course that would be common touch points. And there's only one person per golf cart, those types of things that they're doing to make sure that everybody stays safe. In terms of other facilities that are open, we have Esker Point Beach. There are requirements there for groups of people to stay 15 people apart. So commonly you'll go onto a beach and you'll see somebody put down their blanket and set up their little camp area. That's fine. Just the next camp area needs to be 15 feet away. We do have volleyball courts down at Esker Point, and those are open right now. The governor's order allows us to play 2-on-2 volleyball. And soon that will go up to 6-on-6 volleyball and things like that. That's going to happen with the phase 2 opening on June 17th. Tennis at Farquhar Park is available. We have our Groton hockey rink where we have just painted some pickleball courts inside the hockey rink. So for pickup play for hockey and pickleball, those are two sports that are available. Not playing games of hockey, but if somebody wants to go in there and skate around with a hockey stick and whatnot, that's fine, but there aren't any games of hockey going on. And I guess I'll just mention also some things that are scheduled for reopening, some more things on June 17th. The skate park. We recently had a lot of work done at the skate park to repair some cracks and some other concerns in there to make the surface safer. And it was also painted by a group of volunteers. So if you haven't been by the skate park, you might want to stop by there and look at that and look forward to reopening on June 17th. And the Central Park Dog Park, we also expect to be open. And softball is going to be another thing where we have some various adult leagues and some others that would, some little league games and things like that will be practicing and playing games. The pavilions at Sutton Park, those are available for rental starting this weekend. And I guess I'll also mention that the senior center, beginning July 1, is going to be open up for some more services. But those services will be kind of one-on-one services with a health counselor or a health insurance counselor or benefits or the dietitians. The senior center, I hope, as everybody knows, is currently doing grab-and-go lunches. So people can call into the senior center, order a lunch, and stop by to pick it up. And they are also providing essential transportation for people who need it, to things like shopping or medical appointments. And then, and again, after July 1, we hope to add a couple of outdoor programs, yoga and Tai Chi. Regular open hours at the senior center are going to be delayed longer, just due to the nature of the population that uses the senior center being a little more at risk. So we're going to be going really slow in terms of opening up the senior center. And then I guess just a couple more things. Community events. We have the 4th of July parade is going to be a virtual parade. I hope everybody out there records a short little video and sends it in to us. The library staff are going to put that together into a virtual parade that's going to premiere on GMTV on the 4th of July at 10 in the morning, just like our normal time. So We need people to submit videos to be a part of that parade. So if any of you are out there and want to do that, I encourage you to do so. Our summer concerts at Escort Point Beach are canceled through the month of July. There may be some opportunity when phase 3 hits for us to hold some concerts. So we are hopeful that we'll be able to do some of that. And then the summer camps that we're offering, those summer camps are going to be held. They are going to be held with certain restrictions that are going to be targeted at keeping groups smaller. We have fewer campers that are going to be able to be housed at one site, and the number of kids in a group is going to be capped at 10, so we can make sure that we keep all of those kids safe, and there aren't any field trips or anything like that this year. So there are some restrictions, but we do see summer camps as an essential service for parents who need the service for things like returning to work, or we've even had parents come to us and if they're caring for their children with disabilities, sometimes they need respite or other good reasons why people need to send their kids to camp. So, and then the final thing I will mention is that the COVID-19 situation has had a severe impact on the Recreation and Senior Activities Special Revenue Fund. This is the fund that pays for all of our programs. The revenue that funds it comes from the fees that we charge people for being in our programs. It doesn't receive tax funds support. So as you might imagine, when we canceled an entire season and refunded a partial season for everybody who was enrolled in programs, we lost important revenue that is going to impact us, and we are going to need to use a significant amount of fund balance in that special revenue fund to make the budget work. And I guess on one hand, it's good that we have fund balance that's available to use for it, but using that fund balance is going to affect our ability to do everything that we had planned in the upcoming year in terms of things that we were doing to reach parts of the community we hadn't been reaching before, things like mobile recreation or drop-in programs or other services that would be provided to people who can't afford to pay. So that's an unfortunate thing, and we're going to have to, the town is going to have to take a hard look at the operations, and we're going to have to look at it and see what we can do to support those services when I guess in many cases they're needed more than ever. You can see people flocking to parks these days. You can see all of those people that are stuck in terms of trying to get back to work and looking for safe places for their children, those types of things. So it's an essential time that we provide our services, and our fund balance is going to be such that it's going to be awfully tough for us to do that just in a vacuum. So with that, Madam Moderator, I guess I went on pretty long and pretty fast there. So I'm happy to answer any questions for anything that I wasn't clear on.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lokken. We have two questions, and I'm hoping I didn't miss Representative Thomas. If did you want to have a question with Mr. Lokken? And if you were actually wanting to speak with Mr. Burt, maybe we'll hold you to the end. So Representative Thomas, you're on.
Yeah, my question was more for Mr. Burt. But I do wanted to note from Mr. Lokken that I do appreciate your comment there about these services being needed now more than ever. And I would just encourage that we look at ways to maybe redirect some funding in some fashion from other areas of the budget. Maybe there's some kind of transfers that we could allocate for through the town council and RTM that would maybe make that available. But I do have a question for Mr. Burt too, as well.
Maybe we'll hold that and we'll circle back after, if that's acceptable.
Yes. Yep. That's fine.
Representative Whitehouse.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment. And it sounds like you're doing a great job in very difficult circumstances, especially because most of what Parks and Rec does is about bringing people into physical proximity. So appreciate your report. I just want to make a comment. You talk about the fund balance. Occasionally during the budget process, someone will look at the fund balance, say, hey, why do you have so much money piled up there? Why do you need town money? Why don't you spend down your fund balance? And I just want to point out that like this is why you don't spend down the fund balance, because something could happen. And fortunately, we've been prudent and have built up a fund balance. So obviously there's other things we wanted to spend it on, but I'm glad that we've been prudent in managing this fund balance. So we did have a cushion when a very unexpected disaster occurred. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. Representative Mello Miller.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Lokken, for the wonderful detail and all that the Parks Department is doing. Two questions. One is, and I assume you have, but are there any grants available that we could look into to help with this funding? And one other question is, have you looked into partnering with nonprofits in the area like GOSA or et cetera, where you could possibly have some things outside that you could do or have available for residents or those in those needed communities? For instance, partnering to go on the crosstown trail or et cetera, where you could have safe social distancing, but involve the community, but not spend much funds to do it.
Yeah, those are two good points there. In terms of grants and outside funding, I guess I would say that being in the pay-to-play kind of environment, we don't have access to many grants that pay for people. There are a number of social services, and particularly during the summer, that agencies frequently contact us to pay the bill for a particular family they're trying to serve. I guess we've had everything from Care for Kids to the Agency on Aging and others kind of trying to help out people. And we do receive some funding to allow particular children to attend programs. But just block grants or something like that, somebody giving us a bunch of money just to run recreation programs that we're charging fees for, that is something that if that's a unicorn I haven't seen yet. At least funding available for that type of thing. In terms of I guess your second question there was partnering with other agencies like GOSA or others. Yeah. Those are things that we absolutely do support. We have a vast network of agencies that we work with. We work with them, partner with them on events, and do things. And in fact, GOSA in particular, in past years, we've taken kids from our summer camps out on GOSA trail hikes and things like that. There are certain limitations there, and in particular in our summer camp situation, especially, we are prevented from transporting kids. We're not able to put a bunch of kids on a bus and bring them anywhere in town. So the transportation gets to be a little bit of an issue there for us, at least this year. It hasn't been in the past, but this year it is a reality that we are faced with dealing with. But yeah, throughout the year, we certainly have relationships with GOSA. We have relationships with, the Avalonia group. We have the Denison Pequot Seapost, the Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce, youth sport leagues, all kinds of different people that we work with throughout the year to provide opportunities for programming for people.
Thank you, Mr. Lokken. That was great. Are there any other questions of Mr. Lokken regarding Parks and Rec? All right, seeing none, I want to thank you. I do note that Representative Thomas did have a question for Mr. Burt. Representative Thomas?
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. Yeah, so Mr. Burt, I just wanted to touch base and go over the police review process. Like, what is the current process right now if there was for a citizen who had a complaint about how they were treated to report an incident and then have that reviewed?
Sure. I'm not going to go into detail, though. That I'd like to hold most of that for when Chief Asaro puts all his information together. There's a form on the town's website for any police complaints, and then it gets thoroughly investigated and and responded to after the investigation. But that form is available on the town website if you go to the police department. But
okay, thank you. And who is reviewing these reports once you submit the complaint?
Typically, it's well, I don't want to speak. Well, yeah, I think I know, but I don't want to mess it up. I'm going to wait. Any of the police ones, please wait for Chief Cusaro till he puts his information together. Often, I will tell you, often it's Deputy Chief Gately, but it can be others. I know Captain Sinagra, when he just retired, by the way, but he'd often do them. There's depends on workload sometimes, but it's usually one of the upper, it could be a lieutenant, but I don't know how they determine who it gets assigned to.
So it is an internal process, internal to the police department?
Yeah, unless it involves the chief. We did have a citizen complaint about that included different police officers and the chief. That was that we did it partially internally, but also partially external from another police department.
Thank you. And as far as will Chief Cusaro be including the escalation of force?
Yes,
matrix?
he will. Yes,
or is okay. And that's going to be on the 23rd. He's giving that presentation to the town council?
Correct.
All right. And has there been any discussion with him at all in as far as what New London is doing with the PCRC they have in place? Has there been any thought over the past couple years of trying to adopt a model like that?
We're still, we've been talking about different ideas over the last couple of years, but again, I don't want to speak out of turn until he's actually supposed to be sending me all his information tomorrow to review. And I want to have a logical layout of all the ideas. I'd prefer not to step on his toes.
Very well, thank you. Yeah, I would just like to say in general, I think moving forward, we should look at something like that as a model, and we definitely would need, I think we'd be well served to have a civilian review board of some kind that is transparent and accessible to the public. Thank you.
And Mr. Burt, I would agree. I think there might be a role for the Ethics Commission here to play. And I am also very, in the set of questions that I had sent, that those were prominent in them. So I would hope we can have this. And I would also hope that Chief Cusaro will come to our body and answer questions of the RTM because it's unfortunate to just see him one time a year during budget season when they want to get funding for their department. It would be nice to be able to ask him questions at other times.
Yeah, just to mention, he's been busier than he's ever been here between COVID and other things going on, and Captain Sinagra's retirement that's happening. That workload's being divvied up. He's barely taken any. I know he didn't mow his lawn for like 3 weeks, so he's extremely busy trying to find time for everything. He's being pulled in a million different directions. He's on a lot of state boards, including racial profiling. He's on that statewide board and many others.
Thank you. I imagine he's super busy, but anyway, it would be nice to have this dialogue with him. So thank you, Mr. Burt. I don't see any other questions. I think we're ready to move on. I don't believe there's Mr. Bronk or Mr. Reiner not here for economic development, are they?
They're not.
Okay. So the next item on our agenda are liaison reports. I don't know if we have any. And I just want to ask and see, I do not believe we have a town council liaison. Representative Foster stepped down. And I don't believe anyone has taken over that position. So I'm going to send out a call for a liaison for the town council. And if there is someone in the body who has already volunteered and I'm not remembering, please let me know. So if there is a town council liaison report, please come forward and identify yourself. If not, we'll move on to the Board of Ed and I'll ask Representative Fitzgerald if she has a report. And I understand Representative Fitzgerald may have pain that prevents her from speaking. So
yeah, I sent out the report later this afternoon, but I'd rather not talk right now.
That's fine.
Okay.
Dental surgery is not pleasant. Representative Rusk, do you have anything from Economic Development Commission?
I do, thank you. I attended the Economic Development Commission meeting on Thursday, June 4th. They discussed continuing business outreach. They're reaching out to restaurants and businesses, trying to work with them with the new guidelines and making sure everybody's aware of what's going on. I highly recommend everybody take a look at the Explore More Groton website and look at the events page. There's a lot of things that are going on regarding COVID and just trying to keep everybody up to date. In addition, we discussed the impacts of COVID-19 on different businesses. Some businesses are having their best year ever. Some businesses have closed permanently. So it's definitely a toss-up on how people are reacting to this. They're working with a lot of the restaurants and a lot of the new guidelines on what they can and can't do regarding the governor's or the governor's new rules. In addition, I think it's mentioned that the plastics ordinance was requested to be held off, and I believe that the town council has stated that they're going to work on a later date on this. I'm not sure what the date is though. And other than that, that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have a report from the Golf Advisory Committee, Representative Wells?
We do. I thought my report got stepped on, but he did mention we had a very good spring. The weather's been great. It's been like Hawaii. It rains at night and the sun comes out in the daytime. Anyway, with golf being the only game in town, we are enjoying a bit of a bump. The May revenue was 54% greater than last May and 45% greater than the prior four-year average. Our fiscal year-to-date revenue remains 11% greater than last year and 40% better than the four-year average at this time. The season passes are selling nicely. While our green fees are comparable to neighboring courses, our season passes are less expensive. The new flexible passes lasting for 12 months from the date of purchase have resulted in 49 additional members over this year. The senior limited passes are still lagging last year's totals, which should pick up as golfers who have been reluctant to travel in the current conditions return from Florida and Arizona. The new Associate and Associate Plus passes, which were introduced last year to attract younger golfers, were introduced last year and are selling 2 to 3 times last year's totals. To maintain social distance, they've reduced the number of tee times from 7 per hour to 6 per hour, which interestingly has resulted in an improved pace of play and greater flexibility to accommodate players when golfers fail to show or are late for scheduled times. So it's fewer, more isn't better. As was mentioned, the carts are back on the course. There are 2 shifts of rangers able to clean the carts before they go out and enforce the state mandate of only 1 person per cart. There is not a separate cart rental. It's a greens fee with a cart. Golf being a social game, many who normally pay the cart fee are preferring to walk. Golfers who would normally share a cart are now required to use 1 cart each, and with the course receiving the same amount of money. The result is more courts on the course with no increased income, while fuel and maintenance increases. Chatting golfers previously riding side by side are now driving side by side, and off the cart and off the cart paths, creating more wear and tear on the course. So they're spending more to maintain the carts, and the revenue on the carts isn't increasing. Our Facebook followers have increased 12% to 1,181. We may soon be treated to more drone footage. While parts of the course are permanently off limits, approval to fly the remainder currently requires several days advance notice. The FAA is introducing a faster online approval procedure That'll avoid us having to guess what the weather's going to be like next week. You may recall neighbors sent photos of trees along the 11th fairway that were in bad shape and needed to be replaced. Our arborist determined that those trees were in bad shape, but all the others were also in bad shape and needed to come down. Not expecting all to come down at once, the neighbors are now concerned about errant balls striking their houses. We may put up a "please do not hit your ball off the course" sign on the tee, which may subconsciously cause people to hit the ball off the course. And the next meeting is in September, so we'll have a couple of months off for Golf Advisory Board reports. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Wells. That was wonderful as usual. Parks and Trails Commission, Representative Mello Miller.
Sorry, no report.
Okie doke, thank you. And I don't believe there's a report from the Town Council RTM Board of Ed Liaison Committee. Representative Chase?
You're correct, Madam Moderator. No meeting, no report.
Thank you. So I think that wraps it up for liaisons. Please, again, request for a member to be a liaison to the Town Council. You can contact me offline, by email. That would be great. We do need one. I found them very useful. We do not have any committee reports at this time, I don't believe. And I don't think we have any budget discussions. Is there anyone here who has a budget question? Seeing none, we're into other business. Is there any other business? Representative Thomas?
I'm sorry, I had a bit of a lag there. I did want to ask about, I did have a budget question.
Okay, please.
In regards to the possible land purchase that was discussed in the Town Council meeting last night, what do we really know about that, and what was the amount that's going to be spent on that land purchase? It's going to be pulled out of fund balance, I believe.
So far, that information has been left in executive session. It might be, there'll probably have to be some information in the resolution, but I'm not allowed to divulge executive session information.
All right, could we just maybe have you speak to what was discussed last night and give a synopsis to the body here for anyone who might have missed it?
There's a piece of property that has historic and environmental components to it. The planning department has been talking with the council since at least February, maybe even before that, about the possibility of there's different grants out there. One of the grants that's coming due is for 75% of the cost to purchase a property, 75% of the appraised. I think they only go up to the appraised cost at the most, is my understanding. So it's not like it's an unlimited, you can name your price and it's 75%. But the town, under that grant, the town would be required to pay 25% of the cost. And at last night's meeting, they recommended, the town council recommended moving forward. There does have to be a resolution, though, submitted back to the council to consider.
Thank you. So to be correct, that money would be pulled from the fund balance in order to make that purchase?
In order to do, well, first you have the open space fund. I forget the exact title of it. I think there's about 90,000 or so in an open space fund for that type of purpose. But anything else, yes, you'd either have to find someplace else to cut or fund balance, but it's going to be fund balance. I can't imagine where else you would pull it.
Okay, and this is coming just a couple weeks after the town council voted to not use any fund balance in order to reduce the mill rate.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'm actually, thank you, Representative Thomas. I am not aware, where is this property located?
It has not been publicly, it hasn't made, I don't think it's been made public yet. Again, I'm not allowed per direction of town council and best practices to release information from executive session. It might have to end up being in the resolution, but at this point, I'm actually not authorized to say.
Okay, thank you. I would imagine once the resolution is passed, though, it would go through this body. Is that correct?
Before acceptance, it would have to. Right.
Before purchase.
But right before you would have to by the time it's accepted, especially because it would obviously involve budget amendment.
Thank you. So you don't have an ETA on it on when that will happen? What month? Is that July or August?
Not yet. They just gave the recommendation of going forward last night. And as you can imagine, planning department is busy with a lot of things they're trying to put together. It's actually a very in-depth grant application. However, we've had some of the open space type conservation groups offer to help with it, like Sue Sutherland for one offered to help write the grant. So we're trying to figure that all out, who's going to do what, and piece it all together, put a timeline together.
So I'm confused.
Other
So
than
the public
base application. Go ahead.
I'm just confused that the RTM isn't privy to know about this, but residents in the town are going to help with the grant?
There's a discussion with one of them about possibly raising dollars at some point to help with the match.
Okay. Well, hopefully it will become, the information will be released to this body at some point in the very near future. Thank you.
It will be.
So is there any other business that this body would like? Representative Washington?
I have a question for the town manager. I was listening to the town council meeting last night, and this has to do with the land that you're going to purchase and the grant.
Right.
I was wondering how come nobody picked up on the fact that Rachel said there was a grant that that the town could be reimbursed 100% instead of going for the grant that you all are going for. That's only going to pay for 75%. I don't understand why you didn't try to investigate more that grant that Rachel Frankel was talking about.
The town council did discuss that, and just because of the high value of this property, the majority recommended moving forward with the grant that's currently coming due to see if they can obtain that. So it was discussed by the town council, but that's ultimately their decision.
Okay. I thought she had a good point where, where we could get reimbursed 100% as opposed to 75% and may have to go into the fund balance to pay for the rest. But if that's the way you're going, that's the way you're going.
Thank you. Representative DeCilia Fleming.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I believe that racism has no place in Groton, and in light of recent events taking place nationally and in Groton, I would like to propose that town officials and members of the Groton government are offered the opportunity for bias education and racial equity education to address issues of racism, prejudice, bias, and discrimination. We all have blind spots and implicit bias. Educating ourselves to be able to identify these can only have a positive effect on our work as an RTM and for Groton at large. In the past, we have discussed how to meet with our constituents, but I do not believe we have received any guidance about how to go about this. We need to keep it in the front of our minds that we represent the people of our districts, not simply our own personal interests. I would like to make a motion that town officials and members of Groton government are offered the opportunity for racial equity and bias education.
Before you do anything with that, can I tell you we've already budgeted for that? But I mean, it's fine. I can tell you some details on it.
I second the motion on the floor.
So we have a motion on the floor, and it's been made by Representative DeCilia Fleming, seconded by Representative Thomas, that the town RTM and staff, I believe, and officials have racial equity training. So Mr. Burt is saying that this is already an option. Does this mean, do you want to describe the...
You want to give us the details?
Yeah.
Sure. The town council, well, we, by the way, any motion would only affect the RTM, but like I said, we're already covering it anyways. We had budgeted $40,000 in the human resources budget, and the council upheld it, and the RTM upheld it for Parks and Rec first came in contact with Thought Partner Solutions through, I think it's the, I'm blanking. Anyways, they're an organization.
CCM? Not CCM?
Not CCM. Like Sustainable Connecticut, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It actually, that sustainability is considered to have quite the diversity component to it. And, part of being sustainable is the diversity. But so the RTM and Town Council had approved a budget of $40,000 to bring in this group who are well regarded. What they do is, let me just a second, I'm pulling it up. If you give me 1 second. They put on, and this is available to council members, RTM members, staff, but as well as town-wide to people who are interested. It's eight full-day workshops, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And some of what they hit, here's a description. So there's 8 7-hour sessions. Advancing racial equity through the prosperity, health, and safety of the entire community. In order to transform structures, organizations, communities, and systems, municipal employees need to be able to lead with it. And it's not just municipal, it's going to be townwide, but that's kind of the bullet point there. To lead with an anti-racism, racial equity lens. This highly interactive training provides a comprehensive framework and definitions of equity, diversity, and inclusion, EDI, an overview of the value of EDI, community engagement, and why workforce representation is important, practical strategies for advancing equity and hiring for municipal employees, practical strategies and application of inclusive town events, community dialogue, resident feedback, and town responsiveness. They use a variety of tools and teaching methods, including graphic facilitation, visual imagery, theoretical models, small group dialogue, and kinesthetic interaction. I gotta admit, I don't know what kinesthetic is, to create a dynamic space that supports all types of learners. So they do a variety of things. And then the question is, so that money becomes available July 1st, and then part of the question will be, do we do it online or do we wait until we can do it in person? So that's some discussions that are going to have to take place. But that is budgeted and approved.
Thank you. Representative Flax, did you have a question? Sorry, I'm not that good at monitoring my phone.
I do. Thank you, Madam Moderator. I have a question more about procedural than outcome. But last meeting, there was I think it was the District 2 had got together to vote in a new member. And it's not about the result of the new member. And
no, it wasn't District 2. It was District 4, I believe, right?
Thank you. District 4. And I was looking at the rules on the charter about how members should be voted. And it says that the election to fill any vacancy shall be by ballot, and a majority of the votes cast shall be required for a choice. The chairman.
Representative Flax, can you hold this? Because we do have a motion on the floor at this point.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I don't believe your comments are relevant to that. So we'll pick that up as soon as we conclude this discussion.
Sorry about that.
No. Representative Thomas, did you have more to say? Your hand is raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch base. Kinesthetic means like dynamic. It's an action-based program, so it needs to be something that has to be interactive. So my question in regards to the policies and is what are we like? What's the plan? I guess. I mean, I heard a lot of words there, but what are we gonna do? Like, I believe the motion on the floor had to do with like, offering the opportunity actively and publicly for all town employees and all elected officials to engage with this training. So I believe there are some institutions already in the town that do this sort of training, and maybe we could find ways to couple together with those institutions and ride alongside with what they're doing. Thank you.
So we have a motion on the floor, and I'd like to hear from Representative Cecilia Fleming if she thinks the training so let me just describe the lay of the land here. This should go to committee. in order to be voted on by this body. And the other option is that we have a vote to suspend the rules, and then we can have a vote on this motion made by Representative DeCilia Fleming. However, we've been informed by the town manager that training will be made available. So I'm going to just ask Representative DeCilia Fleming if she would like to withdraw her motion or keep it on the floor.
I would like to keep the motion on the floor, although I appreciate that the town has something in place and funds will be available July 1st. I think the wheels need to be in motion before that.
Thank you. Representative Chase?
Yeah, well, I was going to bring that up. Thank you, Madam Moderator. I was going to bring that up. If we already have money in the budget for this training, and it's going to be for anyone and everyone who wants to take it, why do we need to make a motion? I'm not understanding that. Thank you.
Okay. So I guess the issue that I think we can debate the merit of it, but I think we really need to have it either be referred to committee or we really should suspend the rules and then debate it. I think that's the proper course now. So is there a motion to suspend the rules? And just to remind you before someone puts that on the floor, that does take a 2/3 vote and is non-debatable. Representative Mello Miller?
I make a motion to suspend the rules to discussion.
Second, Chase.
Thank you. We have a motion to suspend the rules by Mello Miller, and it's been seconded by Representative Chase. That's not debatable, and we do need a 2/3 vote. Town Clerk, could you take a roll call vote, please? Town Clerk? All right, I think the town clerk is not around, apparently. I can read this off. Mr. Burt, would you help me with this, please? Sorry.
Hold on 1 second. It's a roll call vote, you said?
I don't have any of these pieces of paper in front of me, so this is very difficult. Okay. I'm going to read your name. Let me, if you could help me between the two of us.
Okay.
Yeah, let me get a different piece of paper. All right, here. Okay, Representative Adams.
Abstain.
Okay, Bailey.
Yes.
Baker. Baker. Baker, are you on mute by some chance? Have you left the meeting? I guess she's left the meeting. Okay. Casper.
No.
Cassieri.
Yes.
Chase.
Yes.
Crockett. Oh, no. Dean Shinbrot.
No.
DeCilia Fleming.
Yes.
Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Flax.
Yes.
Fortner.
Yes.
Foster.
Yes.
Frickman.
Yes.
Gauthier David.
Yes.
Gauthier Lauren.
Yes.
Gustafson. I understand. Representative. No?
No.
Okay. Jones.
Yes.
Katowski. Katowski.
I don't think she's on.
Katowski is on.
Yeah.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Lambert. Lambert?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Luck?
Yes.
Thank you. Mello Miller?
Yes.
Merritt?
Abstain.
Osman? Osman? Abstain.
Abstain.
Thank you. Powers, Kristen?
Yes.
Powers, Sean?
Yes.
Richards?
Yes.
Rusk?
Yes.
Starkley?
Yes.
Hang on, I gotta mute somebody. Stevenson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Whitehouse?
Yes.
Whitney?
No.
Ebbin? Yes. Did I miss someone? Anyone? So my count of this is 26 to 4 to 3. Is that concur with your count, Mr. Burt?
That is. And by the way, sorry, go ahead.
No,
Go
what?
ahead. Go ahead. I'll tell you after.
I'll just say that motion passes 26 to 4 to 3. What were you going to say?
Ms. McCousher had just texted me that the computer she switched to does not have her microphone, and she didn't realize it.
Oh, got it. Painful. Thank you for clarifying that. All right, so we have now this motion on the floor. We've suspended the rules, so we can act on it this evening. The motion on the floor has been reduced to writing, but I do not have a copy of it. So Representative DeCilia Fleming, would you please reread your motion just to remind us?
Yes. So I'd like to make a motion that town officials and members of Groton government, specifically the RTM, are offered the opportunity for bias education in racial equity education.
Okay, thank you. Is there any comments on this motion? Debate? Representative Gauthier Lauren.
Hi. So as I understand it, the funds are already allocated. It's already been through committee to have the funds for this training. I guess I just don't understand the motion. I agree we need to have this diversity training available for all public officials, and I'm looking forward to taking it. I don't understand what specifically this motion is going to accomplish if the funds have already been allocated and if it's already been through committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Thomas?
I just wanted to thank Representative DeCilia Fleming for bringing this up. And I believe like the point of the motion is to make it public knowledge that it is out there. The training was not necessarily like, broadcast loudly that we had the access to that. So I think that's the main purpose behind the motion. I don't want to speak for Representative DeCilia Fleming. She's well capable of speaking for herself, but that's my sense of it, I guess, is that, we want to make a public statement that we want this kind of training in our body and we believe it's right for the whole town, and we should make it available for everyone and make it publicly known. And yes, it's great that there's already these programs in place, but we need to just be more assertive about connecting, those who need it to the source of where to get it. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Powers, Kristen?
Yeah, it's Sean. It's not Chris.
Sorry.
It's all right. It's both of us. It doesn't really matter. I have a question for John Burt. Mr. Burt, if we were to implement this program immediately, and this is what I think this is about, and that's why we suspended the rules, and I can be corrected if I'm not listening properly here. Is it a cost to us to implement it immediately? instead of, it's already budgeted, correct?
Right. Of course, we can't do it till after July 1st, and we have to see when the company is available.
Okay, and is there a limit to the number of people that can go to this for the amount that we paid?
Well, in terms of, no, there's not a limit in terms of, I don't believe, Bob Zagami, I know, is an attendee. Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there's a limit. However, you'd be limited to the size of where you held it. So, but Bob, do you know offhand if there's a limit to the size? Are you still there? Bob Zagami?
He's there. Hang on. I don't know. I can ask him to unmute, but I can't seem to.
Oh, he's unmuted right now.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, there is a limit, but it's certainly somewhere around, they can have classes up to 100. That's how many people could be there. So it's quite a large audience in some cases. But the real thing you want to look at here is this takes time to do it. So what we'd be looking at is not just this year. As this grows, I would imagine we want this every year afterwards to continue so that everybody gets a chance to be trained.
One other thing to mention is the DEI committee, the town's diversity committee, who were the ones that recommended doing this training. I think part of the idea though is they want to make sure they get full participation, because you have 7 sessions. Did I say 7? It's 7 sessions, right? Or 8 sessions, 100 people, then each one 800. We want to make sure they're full, so we want to definitely take our time and broadcast it and make the connections to make sure it's well represented and well attended.
Well, I have another question.
Oh, sorry, Representative Powers.
Yeah, with us having social distancing and everything like this and not being able to go in a classroom, is there a way to do it virtually like we are right now through Zoom or some other meeting so that it's not, it's a little bit more cost effective possibly? Or is this a classroom setting and that's the only way they give it?
But Bob, go ahead and answer if you want, Bob. But my guess, we could certainly do it, I would imagine, virtually, and maybe it's a combination. Though depending on what happens with COVID, my sort of hope is once the state's fully reopened, that maybe in August, September, we'll be, back to live meetings. So maybe it could be a combination. We'll take a look and see what's going on. Again, we have to see what their schedule is.
That's really what we'd be looking at, is to see what the schedule is, to see if they do have the ability to broadcast it, because maybe if we had, say, 50, 60, 70 people in a class or something like that, others couldn't make it, we may want them to be able to go online to watch this, because that's the way we do a lot of our seminars.
I know we do a lot of training and testing through virtual different meetings and certifications through what we do in real estate. And that's why I asked this question, because if it's a classroom thing where we have to interact with each other, and if it is that way, then that's great. That's the way it should be done. And we should do it the right way and not the virtual way.
Right. And those kind of things will be figured out. We're going to do the training either way. We just have to figure out the best way to do it. So, I'm fully in support of doing the motion. We're going to do it anyway. So why not do a motion to publicly show your support? So you did that by voting on it too. So,
well, this is offered by volunteer, right? It's not mandated, correct? Are we going to mandate it, or what are we going to do with it?
I don't believe the motion was to mandate it. Okay. I'm pretty sure.
Offered voluntarily.
It was offered, right? So it's being offered, correct? Right. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Representative Chase.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. In working with grants and contracts by day, you cannot work on any kind of project in a different fiscal year than what the money is budgeted, number one. And we did vote on this. It was talked about a little bit during the budget session. I'm not sure if we did very much, but I know the town council did. So it's been out there, and I was going to say I'm not sure still why we need this motion, since it is going to be advertised once the fiscal year starts July 1st. But Mr. Burt said, I appreciate what he said about us putting acknowledging that it's there by making the motion. But I just wanted to say that you cannot do any kind of work on any project if it is not the correct fiscal year. Am I correct, Mr. Burt?
Right. I mean, we can certainly start the legwork, though we're getting close to that time anyways. But,
right.
but the money can be expended until that. Correct. But they're obviously not going to be giving a presentation in the next 2 weeks anyways.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Mello-Miller.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'd like to speak in support of Representative Distler-Fleming's motion. I believe that it is imperative that each body in Groton make an active effort to identify where we as public officials have failed at identifying the issues affecting people of color and minorities. I feel like it's our duty as public servants of Groton to receive the necessary training in order to represent all citizens of Groton.
And could I mention one thing when there's a chance?
Sure.
I just want to mention that, we have our management team, which is a large group of employees. At some of the meetings, we only have them occasionally. We do trainings. I probably have maybe 80-ish people go to it. We have had diversity training for town staff, just so you're aware. Besides, some of us have gone to outside diversity trainings, including myself, Jerry, Bob, but we've actually brought in speakers. So just to make everyone aware, it's something we're all very supportive of.
Is there any opportunity, Mr. Burt, to share some of those speakers, now that we're in the world of Zoom, beyond?
With we've actually, Bob, add anything you want in. We, at one point, we really liked a speaker from Connecticut. I think Bob was at Connecticut College. He was highly recommended, and he did a great job and said he could come back, but then things have gotten so busy with other things. No longer, what we're running into is people not really available for free. so unless you guys know of someone else that would do it for free, but this one is, like I said, Parks and Rec was really taken with this group, and it's high level, and I think they do a great job.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had one more thing to say. I'm sorry, Rob.
I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, it's okay, Mr. Burt. No, but in relation to Representative Chase's comment, with all due respect, and as much as I acknowledge and respect her opinion, I feel like regardless if this is voluntary or not, as representatives and in the time we are living in now, I believe that it's imperative that simply as public officials that we do better. And I think if anything of the current climate, it's taught us that no matter how small our political role may be, that we all need to do better in identifying where we have failed members of our community. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Whitehouse.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Yeah, it seems like most of the purpose of this motion is to send that message that as a body, we believe this is important. As I understand the wording, it doesn't actually have any specific impact. It doesn't mandate anything. It doesn't spend money. It doesn't say we're doing it because the money has already been previously allocated. But I am in favor of the motion because it sends the right message. And a lot of the RTM's role is observing, asking questions, and kind of the way we talk about things is almost as important as what we talk about. So I think it is good that we as a body say that we believe this is important. It's something we need to have education on, and as a body, as a town, we need to find ways to do better. And whether you think we're doing well or you think we're doing poorly, you can always do better. And I think this is a good thing. So I support this motion. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. Representative Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I had a question for Mr. Burt. So with the training that is planned to be held, is that actively being pursued as an online training as well in conjunction with the in-person training? And if that training is possible to have it online, would it be available on the town website?
We'd have to look at their rules first of all, we had got this proposal before COVID, so it was intended to be in person. We were gonna have to talk with them to see how their program is affected by providing it remotely. So we're not gonna be able to answer that question tonight. And then I would like to definitely videotape it. Bob, let me know if you know if it's authorized. We have to see if there's anything on their techniques copyrighted. So we have to see if it can be videotaped and broadcast or made available on the website. I certainly would want that.
Yeah, I think that'll be a great opportunity for the town to provide that, not only to, elected officials and everyone that works for the town of Groton, but also for the constituents who may understand that they do themselves have a blind spot. And even if they don't get the full immersive, kinesthetic portion of the training, that they could at least gain that knowledge through the video aspect of it. So thank you.
Thank you. Representative Cassieri.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I too thank Representative DeCillier Fleming for her initiative, and I agree that we should take the stand as an RTM, that we will be proactive in actively seeking this training in light of recent events. I think this vote should stand as our commitment to seek out this training as soon as possible and when it can be made available to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Town Clerk McCousher, did you wish to speak? No. Sorry, I thought she had texted me. She wanted to say, maybe she can't speak.
Oh, no, I actually don't have anything to say at this
point.
It's just, only the motion that's on the floor. You could, as you had pointed out before, send this to committee. You can also use power of initiative if you really want to put some meat behind it to make sure it happens. But it sounds as though this is already in motion, and it's an excellent guide for all of the community, and it hopefully will be available for everyone. But those are your options.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe if this company is not able to kind of transform these sessions, I wonder, Mr. Burt, if it would be possible, if this passes, to have someone come to a regular session of the RTM and maybe just talk on this, on some of these racial equity issues and implicit bias. Would that be something that the town might do?
Sure. And I was just looking up the person, we can contact the person we had do the great training was Dr. John McKnight Jr. He was the Dean of Institutional Equity and Inclusion at Connecticut College. We'll reach back out to him too to see if he's still not available, if he has any contacts or recommendations.
Yeah. I think there's a dean down at Yale at the forestry school, I believe, who might be good too. I'm forgetting his name, but I think my daughter took a course in her high school called Exploring Differences, and I believe that Mr. McKnight or Dr. McKnight was part of that as well. And he was a very good speaker because I actually went to part of that. So that would be terrific if we could have something like that, and maybe I can work with you offline to schedule it or see if it's possible even. Representative Foster.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. As first and foremost, definitely looking forward to taking this training as soon as it's available. And for the record, when this was in committee, the Finance Committee, we're at the heat of COVID, and I did vote against paying for it this fiscal year just because of budgetary concerns. But looking back, I don't know, maybe that was the wrong decision. But I do think Representative Miller brought up an interesting point in terms of ensuring that we're looking at everything that the town's doing to ensure that there are no blind spots. And I was unaware that the town manager and town staff had already taken diversity training. So I was curious, after you've taken that diversity training, if you have come across any areas where there are weaknesses that we can improve now. Thank you.
Well, we've been, am I muted? I'm not muted, am I?
No.
Hold on. Okay.
You're not muted. We can all hear you.
Give me 1 second, please. Well, one of the first things when I came into the town was that I was interested or wanted to see is, is hiring practices. That was my first focus in terms of wanting to see diversity of all kinds among the town employees. And that was my first motivation. That's also why we initially created the diversity committee, which was originally staffed. Now it's got about 30 people with representatives from many different other agencies and businesses. But some of the things we've been, sorry, I just lost my page here, something. Some of the things that Bob and I have been trying to do is, and we're still not there yet, but we made connections with different churches in the area. We send all job postings to be posted at a bunch of different churches. And also the New London NAACP. We posted a variety of specialty websites that reach out to different segments of the population. So we've been trying a lot of different things, trying to get more applicants to be able to help that. So that's one of my big focuses right now. And then as we get into the police, we'll see if there's anything more that needs to be done there. But I think they do a fantastic job, but there's always improvements we can make. But the diversity committee, what they're finding is they want to put on more events to reach out to the community because they're not making the connections. We're putting the word out broad to ask for people to apply or to just be involved in different things, and we're not getting it like we want. And so, there's some great ideas out there. We were just discussing last week at a meeting on events and how to get people involved and pull people out. And there's a lot of good energy in that committee. So, we're going in the right direction.
Thank you. Representative Thomas, you had your hand up, but just went down?
Yeah. So my one quick comment to the motion on the floor is I believe it's also important because us passing this motion would kind of instill it as a priority so that in future budget years, it would carry the weight of this vote in consideration as to whether it is kept in the budget. Two, I'm curious to know more about this diversity committee and the demographics of who's on the committee and who is the chairperson. Thank you.
Jessica Patterson with Parks and Rec are, I forget her job title. She's the chair right now of it. Jerry, who I don't know if he's still on there, he's actively involved in it too. But they are going to give a presentation in July to the town council, and I'll let everyone know when that is so everybody can learn all about them.
Thank you. So seeing no more hands up, we do have a motion on the floor, and I will ask basically all in favor of Representative DeCillier Fleming's motion, which is to provide racial equity and implicit bias training to RTM members and town officials. Please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Representative Foster, are you abstaining? Or?
No, I said aye. Sorry, I just
okay.
I had another.
Okay, that's fine. So I think that motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We do have to go back to Representative Flax, who had a point he wished to raise, and then Representative Foster.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm trying to make it quick. I know it's getting late. So I wanted to just ask the town clerk if the proper protocol was followed with that vacancy in the RTM in that district. That, from what I understand, there was a name brought up, it was seconded and voted on. The name was brought up, then a second name was brought up, and then it just seemed like policy wasn't followed. You don't have to answer tonight. I just want to put it out there to either get the minutes from that meeting or to have an understanding to make sure it was proper protocol was followed. And it had nothing to do with who was chosen or whatever, just that we're following proper protocol. That's all. Thank you.
Oh, as I stated just a few minutes ago, that you had options of protocol, and this was absolutely in line with proper protocol. The motion was put on the floor to suspend the rules, which was approved, and then discussion on the motion.
I think
And-
Mr. Representative Flax is talking about a caucus in District 4 that
Oh, I'm
occurred
sorry.
last month.
Oh, I'm sorry. The District 4 caucus, that was perfectly done properly.
Yeah, but it just says on the election to fill any vacancies shall be by ballot, and a majority of the votes
Oh,
cast
it
shall be.
doesn't have to be by ballot, although they did have ballot and they do have minutes if you'd like to see them. And it was properly submitted and sent to the Secretary of State's office.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, like I said, it doesn't sound like it was, and I know you're saying it was, but it wasn't by ballot. It was by a hand vote. And
that's fine. They can do that. They can do that. They don't have to do it by ballot unless it's requested. So in other words, a member of the caucus can request a ballot, or if it's a unanimous vote, there's no need for a ballot.
That's not what it says in the charter, but I'm not going to debate it now. We can take it up another time.
Okay, fine.
Thank you. Representative Foster?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm not sure if this is possible under the town charter and adding an additional ex officio member of this body, but over the weekend, I just was really impressed with the high school students that set up that protest. I think they handled themselves very well, and I think it would be great if there was some way that we could get them engaged in local government. And if this is something that needs to be referred to the Rules Committee, but it's kind of unclear the way that the charter states explicitly who the ex officio members are. But I think it would be great if it is possible under the charter to have a high school student be an ex officio member of the RTM.
Thank you. It's certainly something to consider. I don't think there is a provision for this in our rules, and certainly not in the charter as well. But if that's something you're interested in, it might be something that could be referred to the Rules and Procedures Committee. But I would prefer it if you could submit that in writing, and I'm happy to refer it if you email it to me. Does that make sense?
Yes, I can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Whitehouse?
Yes, well, I think that's a fantastic idea. And my understanding is that additional ex officio members would be under the rules of the RTM, which would be fully within our purview. So that sounds like it's already being done, but I would love to see that come to the Rules Committee.
Thank you. Representative Washington?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This is a question for the town manager. Is it possible to get an RTM member on that diversity committee that you have?
Sure. Yeah, we're trying to figure out the structure because it's getting rather large with 30 people already. But yes, definitely would appreciate RTM representation. We're actually going to have a meeting Monday, just me and Bob and a couple of the leaders of the committee to talk about how do we handle the larger, there's a lot of interest in it. So, but yes, I'll get back with the RTM.
Okay. What are the demographics? What's the demographics of that committee? You haven't answered that question.
Yeah, I don't have a list with me, but like I said, they're going to do a presentation in July to the town council.
Okay.
I'll let you know when that is going to be.
Thank you. Any other, I don't see any other hands raised. Having seen no hands raised, are we ready to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion to adjourn has been made by Representative Adams and seconded by, I don't know, Representative Bailey. Was that you?
Yes.
Oh, good guess. It's good when there's consistency because I can never tell who's seconding things. All right, all in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we are adjourned and I will see you next month. And I want to thank you all for your service and please stay well, and you and your families and all your loved ones. Thank you. Good evening.